Take the transparent copy to the 3mm backing, which I call the waster, because all the veneers are going to be taped to the waster and eventually they will all be cut out. So I'll just tape this, hinge it to the top. Right, that's now hinged, as you can see here. And I'll put a reference point at the bottom here. I usually do that with a ballpoint pen, about halfway across. A little cross, and we'll transfer that through to the transparent copy. Now, as a result, every time I lift this, I can bring it down into the same position again. All the veneers will be taped to this backing piece, and as a result that'll support the veneers when I'm cutting them. Usually we start with the biggest piece of veneer, which in this case is the sky, and this I'll just tape on into place with sellotape. The idea is to tape it on so it will not move, because you can appreciate if the veneer moved while it was being cut, we'd end up with some awful gaps. I'll put a couple of pieces across the front here to keep it down, and it's good practice after each piece is to mark it off on the plan. So I usually put a cross on the area that I've done. The next piece I'll put in is the water, and it'll be of the same veneer. The water needs to be horizontal to the plan, otherwise it doesn't really look right. I've pre-cut these veneers to speed up the process. We'll take that on, and I like to cut each veneer a few millimetres larger than the area that it's going to cover. That allows for a little bit of movement, because you can appreciate as veneers get added underneath the transparent sheet, the plan is going to slowly move upwards. So it could move up to 1 and 2 millimetres during the process. A little bit of tape around the end, and then we have another little bit of water on the other side of the bridge. We'll add that and refer back to the reference point. And the next biggest piece I would think would be the foreground. You'll notice that all the pieces are numbered, and each number represents a different timber, which makes it a lot easier. I've got arrows on the plan here, and they represent the direction of the grain, so it's quite important to follow that. Page where the only thing that's required is the trees. The idea is to tape them in well so as they don't move. I think I mentioned it before. It would be rather distressing to find pieces that won't fit. And there's the other trees on the left. And the piece we should have put in first. Right, cross those off. Just make sure that I haven't missed any out. No. So now I tape down the transparent sheet, tape it down all the way around, making sure it's nice and tight. I always like to put a bit of tape on wherever the line comes off the picture. Put a couple of more bits along the top, down this side. Now we get to the fun part, which is cutting out. And you can slowly see your picture coming to life. Okay. You'll see that I'm using a treadle fret saw, which I've had for just on 80 years. But any scroll saw, electric, as long as it's got speed control and takes pinless blades, will be okay for doing marquetry. I'm so used to using this saw that I'd like to demonstrate on it and not on the electric. The first part I'm going to cut out, I'm going to cut out the foreground piece first, because it's a fairly large piece, and then I can build onto that. So here we go. This is the fun part. The blade is an 02, and you've seen the still photograph of it. It's a robust blade, and I find that the gap is so slight that it doesn't really show up. I keep one finger fairly close to the blade to hold down the veneers. If they lifted, there's a danger of them cracking or splitting. Now we've cut our first piece out, and I will retape this area so as nothing moves. Tape it all down. And we'll remove the so we get on to our second piece. Remove the tape. It's a good idea to remove as much sellotape as you can. A pair of tweezers is often helpful. In typical sellotape, it sticks where you don't want it to. And we'll fit it to our first piece and put on a little bit of tape just to hold it in place, and put a bit of tape around here. And so we go on. We've got our final three pieces to fit in, and seeing the small pieces, I like to pick them up with a number 11 blade to put them in position. Centralise it, put on a little bit of tape so they don't move. And we have a small piece here, and final piece here. only thing is I've put there and there. Take those together. And there we have it. As you see, I've already squared it off to save time. And the next step is to put on the borders. Okay. So we've got everything taped down, ready to go. And I'll now put on the border, which I'm using a narrow strip 5mm wide of black walnut, which will go on first, and the outer border will be a piece of pencil stripe sapelli, which is 10mm wide. Put on the lights. So push them close together and take them on. Turn it around and do the other side. Put it in tight. And we continue with the other two sides. So we've now got all this border strips on, and I always cut the miters from the reverse side. And the reason for that is that the blades, they're V-shaped, so you end up with a V cut. Whereas if you cut from the opposite side, the joins are a lot closer. I use a set square and a ruler. Press down hard, and I'm using a number 11 blade for cutting. It's a more robust blade for this sort of work. And just score across until you're through. We move on to the next one, and so we work our way around the picture. That should do it. So now we have our picture ready for framing. And I've mounted on 9mm MDF, sheet of 9mm MDF, and we need a backing veneer to stabilise it. So we'll apply glue. The glue I use is one I obtained about 50 years ago. I had to buy 4 gallons of it, and I'm still using it. But PVA is quite okay. I think you really need a screed of some sort so as you can apply an even coat. This has got a serrated edge, and it just allows a nice layer of glue. So here we go. See how that works. Flip that over onto the backing veneer and then apply glue to the front. And the picture on. Now, I have an 18mm baseboard, 6mm sheet of foam plastic, and some clean paper. Put our piece of work on it. Another sheet of clean paper. Our foam plastic. And our top clamping board. And then we clamp. That I will leave till tomorrow and then take it out of its clamps. This I've taken out of the clamps and I've removed the sellotape, and as you can see there's still residue of sellotape glue there and also bits of paper, but that'll all sand off. I've buzzed the edges to make them true, and I will now organise the sanding. I find that the sellotape has left a lot of the glue behind, and to combat that, what I use to get rid of that is the dust out of my orbital sander. So I just sprinkle it on and rub it around, and that seems to absorb most of the stickiness. So maybe somebody's got a better idea, but this is what seems to work for me. So once that's dried, I'll just brush it off. Then in my orbital sander, I've got a 240 grit pad. So it's a good idea to clean the disc regularly. Right. That's fairly well done. So you can the rust bit with a 240 grit, and I'll now go down to a 300, and that should finish it off nicely. Right. Now there's the odd place here where there's a little bit of a gap. And to get rid of that gap, I use the magic formula. Now I've got sanding sealer and the dust from the orbital sander. Sanding sealer diluted 50% with lacquer thinners. And I'm using the same dust that I used earlier on. And being naughty, I just pour a bit of the sanding sealer out. I dip my finger in it and then into the sawdust, and then I go over the areas in a circular motion, and it's amazing how that fills up the gaps. There's a little bit more around the bridge here. And get to the stage where you use it all over the place. Just keep circling, and eventually it'll dry and it'll come off. It's a little bit more up in the other corner here. That's pretty well done it, I think. Right, we'll let that dry. I'm using a little pad of superfine paper. I believe the car painters use this for rubbing down between coats, and it works very well on wood. So I'll just run over where I've used the filler, keep a circular motion, and I'll give that a brush down. And we're ready for a coat of sanding sealer. I'm using the same concoction sanding sealer, diluted 50% with lacquer thinners. And I'll just brush on a coat. I'll brush on a very liberal coat. The first time, brings the colour out in the picture. This will be sanded back and another coat applied. There we are.